What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Neostarling, and yes, I am here with a review for the first episode of The Last of Us, which is available on HBO Max. Check it out. Honestly, I thought it was fantastic. I'm going to say that right off the back. Now, if you want to click off and say, hey, you know what? You kind of spoiled the climax. It is what it is. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much, especially with the reputation nowadays that video game to movie or TV series adaptations have, where they can't quite just get it right. You know what I mean? We know we had that issue recently with Resident Evil. I thought that it was horrible. You know, it's like you have the source material, you have all the S.T. Perry novels. Why can't you just kind of just follow that story, right? You would think it's simple. Just get it out of the way. No, but they couldn't do that. Now, regardless, this is not a review of Resident Evil. This is a review of The Last of Us. So that's what we're going to be focusing on primarily. So let's start off with the casting. Now, I will say, I'm not going to lie, I did have a couple of casting issues prior in the beginning. It was simply because I've always been a fan of characters like physically, like properly representing the characters that they're playing. You know, that doesn't always have to be the case. If you have a really good actor, that's kind of all what matters at the end of the day. And Pedro Pascal, who plays Joel, which is really funny because he's also the Mandalorian. And it's almost the same show or the same premise if you think about it, because in The Mandalorian, he's also taking care of a small child and, you know, just kind of playing like that paternal role. And he's doing the exact same thing here, but, you know, except it's a post-apocalyptic future and he doesn't have all this technology to help him. I initially thought when I looked at Joe from the video games, because first and foremost, I will say I did play the game and I thought it was fantastic. Pedro doesn't really sort of capture that Joel spirit, in my opinion, at least on a physical level. But once more, I was wrong, because once I actually saw Joel in action, once I saw Pedro in action, I realized, damn, he's doing a pretty damn good job. And he already sort of, again, once more, has this sort of experience just off of the strength that he is the Mandalorian, so he's playing a similar role in a way. I didn't really have any problems with any other casting outside of Ellie. So Bella Ramsay is the one that plays Ellie. I don't really have any issue with her personally. I just kind of wish they would have given her a similar hairstyle. Just give me that, you know, that sense of this is the same character kind of deal, whether or not, you know, you decide to make them look the exact same or not. Outside of that, I didn't really have any issue with her, even though she's not in too much of the episode. She sort of shows up towards the end, which they give you a solid, huge 90-minute episode. You know, that's almost like watching a movie in a way, if you think about it. So we sort of got blessed with that. The directors did a really good job of just sticking to the story of the game. There's very slight differences. If anything, they added to the original source material to fluff it up a little more, because we start off with who we thought was our protagonist at the beginning, Sarah, which is Joel's daughter, and she's played by Nico Parker. Now, Nico did a fantastic job. No lie, they did a great job of making you fall in love with this character. She's such a sweet person. She really cares about her dad. You know what I mean? She's a sweetheart. She's nice to the neighbors. You know, she goes out of her way for the people that she cares about. You know, you're sort of following things through her lens at the beginning, so you're thinking that she's going to be a prominent character. Now, we all know that if you've played the video game, that is certainly not the case. But again, they're not only making it for people that played the game. You know, this is also for just a regular like TV show viewer. So the average person is not going to necessarily know what happened to her character. So they did a really good job of giving us that false delusion that she was going to be the protagonist, because we once more were following the story through her eyes. As the show progresses, you know, and the apocalypse starts to happen, it was really cool because they really made you feel this sense of dread. You know what I mean? Like, they put the camera inside of the car once they're trying to drive away from all the madness to sort of give you that feeling of like claustrophobia. You know what I mean? Because you could only see what's happening from inside of the camera. So it's almost as if you were in the driver's seat, which I thought was pretty cool. They also did a good job of showing Joel's ability to survive in this brave new world that our characters are going to soon find themselves in when they drive by this family, and the family has a daughter, or rather a child. I don't know if it was a daughter or not. But his brother, Tommy, wanted to stop, and he was like, no, we got to keep going. And he goes, oh, but they have a kid. He goes, so do we. Which is a really good way of saying everyone has to fend for themselves, because, you know, everything just turned to crap. And in a way, sort of setting up Joel as this guy that's going to be really good in this brave new world just because of how tough he is and the sacrifices that he's willing to make. You know, he wants to basically take care of his own. He doesn't want any dead weight, so to speak, you know, so... But outside of that, you know, the apocalypse happens. And this is another thing that they did a good job of. And I felt that most shows and movies don't really get enough credit for, because typically when they handle a child's death, it's never really done in a way that you're really seeing what's happening. It's either done off of screen or it's simply implied that they died, but they hardly ever show a child's death. And here they did. They showed Sarah getting shot, and they show her bleeding out. They show her gasping for breath, and it was really heartbreaking when you saw it, because they showed the camaraderie and you know, the parental love that Joel had for her, and these two really did love each other. You can tell. This is one thing I'm glad that they didn't do. They didn't make Sarah this like snippy, bratty, annoying girl that's always like talking crap about her dad. No, she was a very loving daughter. Like, she even made him eggs in the beginning, and you know, they were having like banter with each other back and forth, which shows that they have a good relationship with each other. And I liked that because it actually showed that father-daughter bonds that you hardly see. You know, usually a lot of these shows, they try to make it seem like either they're like anti-dad, or they just want the kids to be snippy for no reason. I liked that she was just a regular person. You know, that's kind of one of the traits that also made her very lovable. And it's really sad when she goes. So, you know, fast forward 20 years later, which is 2023, our current time, which is really interesting because the original game, it's 2013, but I guess they wanted to make it more aligned with what's happening nowadays. It was really good because they're in this quarantine zone now. You know, the world's separated into like different quarantine zones, and you really live a crappy life there. Like, they show you how bad it is to be in that sort of system. They have this like ticket system, which is sort of their currency, and they have to do all of these odd jobs in order for them to, you know, get any supplies like food and shelter and whatnot. You know, for the most part, living in this new future is pretty bad. And you have this group named the Fireflies. They sort of function as like freedom fighters. They're trying to make them seem like they're terrorists, but realistically, they're the only ones that are kind of trying to bring back the world to the way it was prior to this pandemic, as opposed to the military, which is just like, hey, you know what? This is just a new world. This is the rules that we're going to live with. And they rule it with an iron fist. They will kill you for any minor discrepancy, which is really horrible. So what ends up happening is that Ellie eventually gets introduced into the story, and we find out that she was bitten, but she didn't transform. She'd been bitten for like 3 weeks already, and they held her there. They kept her in captivity in hopes of seeing whether she would transform or not, because they figured, hey, if she doesn't transform, then we got to study her. We got to see what's going on. We got to see what it is about her blood specifically that makes her immune to this virus. So she automatically becomes the most important character in the room. Now, when Joel meets them, it's really funny because he like slams Ellie across a wall when she tries to stab him. So they just show some, it's just very brutal. I thought it was really interesting because he's just like, get out of my way. And, you know, those two are obviously not fond of each other. Now, that's done on purpose. I want you to be aware of that because they wanted to show the contrast between the way Sarah and Ellie are. So Sarah is pre-pandemic. So she's just a regular girl that lived a regular life up until this point, versus Ellie, who was born into this world because I believe she's 14 in the story, and this happened 20 years ago. So she's been born into this world, so she's battle-hardened. She doesn't take any crap from no one. She really has an excuse to be a snippy, bratty, like annoying person, you know, because this is the world that she's been forged into. Once more, they're very diametrically opposed in their personality, so they were trying to show that off. Towards the end of the episode, the soldier tries to shoot Ellie, and Joel just gets flashbacks of when that happened to his daughter at the beginning, and he just spazzes out. He just loses it, and he starts wailing on the soldier. He just kills him with his bare hands, which is really cool in a way, because not that he did that, but the fact that that is how his character is in the game. You know, he's just a very brutal guy when he's trying to defend the people that he cares about. And that was reminding him of what happened to his daughter prior. So at that moment, without him even realizing it, Ellie became his next daughter. You know what I mean? And Ellie was just looking at him like kind of with some glee and enjoyment in her eyes as he was just like pummeling this dude to death with his bare hands. You know, they just did a good job. So basically, this is going to turn into an escort mission. So far, the first episode is really good. I know I skipped a whole bunch of it. The real purpose of this video is not to give you a play-by-play, but rather just a general understanding of this world that they live in now and what's going to be happening going forward. You know, once more, we were treated to a really nice long 90-minute episode. So, you know, probably they're going to be about 60 minutes or so from this point on. I'm very much hoping it's at least a solid 60 minutes, because that way we'll get our best bang for our buck. You know what I mean? Especially since HBO is a service that you have to pay for. But with that said, I'm telling you, it's really good. And it's very refreshing to see that they took a really good video game with a solid story and they were able to adapt it into a television series that actually feels good, you know? It's about time. We've gone through so many like shit shows essentially with Resident Evil, with everything else that they try to make into a video, into a movie. Anyway, with that said, I really like The Last of Us. I think it's good. I thought it was going to be crap, but I was wrong. I will be reviewing the rest of them as they come out weekly, I suppose. It's not like Netflix where they all get released simultaneously. You know, we got to do the weekly episode thing, which is okay because it gives me time to really gather my thoughts and have a talk. By the way, this is the second video I made because the first one got messed up. So this is how passionate I was about it, that I actually wanted to get this video out, which is really exciting because it sort of ignited my own passion for this. And I will probably be playing the video game again just to sort of compare and contrast, you know, refresh my memory because it's been a while since I played it. But I do want to do a sort of compare and contrast versus the way it is now and the way it was back then. With that said, if you gained any value from this and you thought that you liked this review, please give it a like, comment, share, subscribe. Do the damn thing, help a brother out. You already know the deal. I highly recommend the show. If you do not have HBO, feel free to get it from one of your friends, from one of your family members, from anyone that can provide you the ability to watch this show because it is very much worth it. Okay? And with that said, you are all awesome. And don't ever, ever let anyone tell you different. Signing off.